So the biggest week ever, I would argue, for Elon Musk and Tesla is here. And this is something that has been in the works for years, literally. And we should probably talk about it because it's been a couple of days. I've also noticed that basically every media, have been invited to this event as well. Almost all of them that I know of. And what that tells me that Tesla really wants everything to come out of this event. They want people to know what the hell's going on here. And the framing of the event, aka We Robot, right, implies that there's probably more than one thing, one robot, or one variable to the robot ecosystem that is in play here. Hans, I'll let you go first because this is a big deal. I would argue this is the biggest deal ever for Tesla. What do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely marking a large transition. I mean, I know that we've had AI days, multiple times already. And we've had, whether they were Autonomy Day or specifically AI Day, we've been kind of slowly working towards this transition where Tesla becomes a real world robotics company. And I think this is really going to be the capstone event, really marks the beginning of that digital transition from Tesla, the car company with a side helping of AI, hopefully, to Tesla, the AI company, leveraging cars to leapfrog into the era of real world artificial intelligence. And that's the way that I'm kind of thinking about this going in. I'm really expecting to and hoping that we'll see a lot more information about all of the different components of the real world robotics AI system. So not only is that going to be the RoboTaxis, but it'll also include Optimus. I hope that they give us some updates on Dojo and the progress there, but also the NVIDIA superclusters. I hope that we can learn some interesting tidbits about how they're going about training the neural nets from a technical standpoint. Like, one of the challenges that they're going to face is that if they do have these prototype RoboTaxi platform vehicles that we don't really have very many of them on the roads, then how can those vehicles be operating with full FSD capability since they don't have the data, hypothetically, to be able to transfer FSD into those new vehicles? I mean, this is why the Cybertruck took so long in order to get FSD updates on it, was because they needed a fleet of at least thousands of vehicles driving around on the road. And you can think about it in terms of there's a minimum number of vehicle mile minutes that are necessary in order to have all the data that you need to do the transformation to where both you're validating your input data, that the camera placement on the Cybertruck and the camera placement on this next generation RoboTaxi platform, those are different camera configurations than we have on the 3, on the S, on the X, and the Y. And because of that, then there's some modification that has to happen in between those camera inputs and the core brain in the middle that's processing those inputs before it then writes, directly the control outputs as well. So like the input layer and then the output layer have to be modified slightly compared to 3Y, S, or X, which we have lots of data to, actually train those systems on. And so they've got to have, hopefully, a good system for doing that. Now that we've already done that once with the Cybertruck, maybe they have been able to figure out some clever workarounds to do that for the Cybercab so that the Cybercab can, in fact, operate functionally with FSD. Or, maybe that's part of the reason they're holding it on this closed course inside of the Warner Brothers studio, is because maybe there's something that's involved in doing that allows them to operate these Cybercabs in that specific environment, even though they wouldn't normally be able to in another environment. But that is a challenge. And really, the reason that that's significant is because it has implications for Tesla's ability to license FSD to potentially other car makers, and implications on, a minimum size of a fleet of cyber cabs that you have to have on the road in order to get the software operating. Then any additional color that we can get on how much progress have we been able to make on the software front specifically for Optimus? Also, how much, progress have we made on the hardware? But the software challenges, I feel like the hardware challenges for Optimus are still easier challenges to solve than the full software problem. That it's going to be one thing to get Optimus doing valuable work in a few specific tasks, more than enough to, justify building out a nice small army of them. But the vision of a fully general Optimus robot that can be in your house and be, both a useful helper around the house, but even potentially someone that you would develop some sort of a relationship or friendship with, that's a long ways from now. And that software challenge is incredibly difficult and much, much more difficult than the hardware challenge, which is, a significant and difficult challenge in and of itself. I don't know that we'll get lots and lots of answers around that, but I think we'll get more answers than we have today. And that whatever it is that we learn on Thursday, that it will have implications for what that future looks like as well. So we'll be watching for that. Then there's also a number of things to watch for on the RoboTaxi hardware side and software side as well. So, there's hardware things that will have implications for how fast can Tesla scale up manufacturing, how many more models, what's the complexity of the different model lineups in the future. Those are all going to be, interesting to dig into. I've got thoughts on some of the directions that I think that it's probably going to go, but excited to see which of those are right and which of those are wrong. And then the biggest questions, as far as, I think most people are going to be concerned with coming out of the RoboTaxi event, is what does the actual business model and operating software look like for a full wide-scale RoboTaxi network? And we should get solid answers around that. And that's, that's the big elephant in the room with respect to what is Tesla worth.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more with everything you just said. I think the answer of how and, what is the business case, I would be shocked if that doesn't become clear after tomorrow. I think, the whole thing we've heard from Elon is, some sort of mix between B&B and Uber, right? Which kind of implies partial ownership or partial rent out, or, you can one-time use kind of deal and maybe you pay a premium for it. But if you want to rent the RoboTaxi for 7 days, you get a discount, right? And then, some of it could come from the fleet of owners that want to rent theirs out. And then there's some of it could come from Tesla, where maybe they do more of the ride-hail type things, like the Uber example, right? I think the way I think about it is that regardless of what method they choose, the economics of a self-driving car, especially in Tesla's case, where they can do millions of units per year in, under $25,000 per unit, all in with the hardware. And you're just one software update away from making that car fully self-driving, where you've already put all your sunk costs of that brain into the business already, right? I think that's one thing that people miss is if you look at between 2016 and 2024, all those costs associated to getting a self-driving car to work from a brain perspective, Tesla's already put into the business. They've already absorbed it, right? And so when people talk about, Tesla's margins are going down, it's okay, but you do understand that a lot of those costs, some of those costs are associated to the thing that hasn't been turned on yet. The car's carrying an extra $2,000, call it, worth of equipment that they haven't fully monetized yet. Plus, they have billions of dollars invested in an AI brain in their headquarters that hasn't reached, I would argue, even 1% of its total capacity so that it can actually, you can turn on the ROI on that investment. And so like, and that's like, that gets missed in the discussion, you know? So that to me is an obvious thing that no one is talking about. And when I say no one, I mean people outside of this community, people outside of the people that follow Tesla closely, that understand that the method Tesla is using to solve self-driving is really the core differentiator here. It's not that self-driving is not profitable. It's that the method that Tesla is using is novel. And that novelty is what's going to drive the profitability versus the competition, right? I think the other thing that's also very interesting is that the framing of Tesla as a company, I was thinking about this last night. You know, you think about like, what does a self-driving car do? What does a human or robot do? Truly, they save people time. That's really the core differentiator of how does a self-driving car save you time? You get into the car and you don't have to drive. You go from point A to point B and you do whatever you want. And if you think about a human being, what is the most valuable, precious currency in the world? It's time. Yeah. Right. And that's what self-driving cars do. And then you take that to a next level with a human or robot that does all the physical work for you instead of folding laundry, putting it in the wash. I don't know, just like whatever. I mean, we've gone through that list of stuff that anyone does at home that they'd rather not do. And, you know, they'd rather be on TikTok or whatever, or actually listening to great podcasts like this one. Okay. So there are many different things people can do, right? But that is the core. I couldn't help.
Talk about brain rot.
Yeah. We're worse than TikTok, y'all. Okay. So, but think about that value proposition as a company, you know, like what are the most profitable, most valuable companies in the world? What they fundamentally do is they allow a human being to either enjoy their time more or get their time back. A lot of people pay a very high premium for time, especially the people that have money, right? So think about the value proposition from that perspective. And Tesla's going to do this leveraging artificial intelligence. And that's like, they will likely be, you know, I would argue that there's very few companies that are actually AI driven companies that have a profitable runway in the near to medium term, right? There's a ton. I mean, the AI thing has been this thing that, you know, we've been talking about for a couple of years in earnest, at least, that is like, wow, it's here and people are trying to figure out how to monetize it. You know, we use Descript for our editing now for these podcasts, not a sponsor, but if you want to be, give me a call. Okay. So we use Descript to edit our podcast, what you're listening to right now. And a lot of it is AI driven. Okay. It's brought the time to edit from 2.5 hours to just 20 minutes, 30 minutes. It's handmade. That like, it's an obvious difference what AI can do to someone's life. Right. But then now that same technology is going to be applied to the physical world, not the digital world, the physical world. No other company has done that to my knowledge. Right. And Tesla's likely to be the first. And so that's what's really the most exciting thing for me. And that is that's an easy investment case to make to the public as long as you prove that it's hitting the bottom line. And I was thinking about this other thing too before I throw it back, is like, what were the times that, and none of this is investment or financial advice, but what was the time, if you think back in the history of Tesla, when did the stock react to the fundamental changes to the company? Both times, it's when they proved it on paper the first time. So 2013, Tesla went from $30 to like 180 in the span of like 12 months or whatever it was. And why did it do that? What was it? Was that 6X or whatever? It's when they proved that electric vehicles can be profitable. And then in 2019, 2020, it did another 10, 20X run once they proved that it can be consistently profitable. Right. And so this next leg, if it happens, again, not investment or financial advice, in my opinion, will come once that Tesla can prove that artificial intelligence is a thing that will make the company a gigantic amount of money in the long term. And it can only do that by showing that in the P&L, in the profit and loss sheet, right? And they can do that by either breaking it out from their regular fleet once they have significant, say, recurring revenue from subscriptions or people buying the software outright. They could do that, you know, say if it's actually great and people are buying because of 12.5.6, which is their latest update that just went out today, I was reading. If they're able to show that, then great. But then the RoboTaxis is a whole other thing. And then the bot is a whole other thing. And then God knows what else they can put in between. So how is this not the most exciting time for the company for people that follow it closely?
Yeah, it's crazy to like model out those potential scenarios. And this is why there are so many people who are wildly bullish on the stock, because, you know, potential is pretty insane. But we do, like you said, that profitability has to really flow through to the bottom line in a significant way, you know, that it's clear has transformative long-term impact on the overall profitability profile of the company. And yeah, I think that's more likely to be from RoboTaxi income than from, you know, just uptick in FSD take rates and prices and monetization, which, you know, I think that is a good catalyst for the stock in and of itself. But, you know, Elon is ambitious and he forces Tesla to really swing for the fences. And so, you know, that would be like a wildly successful outcome for 99.9% of CEOs and companies. But for an Elon company, that's really not good enough. And so he's really pushing full throttle towards full RoboTaxi. And based on the investments that they're making today, it seems like in his mind, that is 100% realistic and achievable. And so, you know, Elon obviously has a much better sense for what is going to be technically possible 5 or 10 years from now than just about anybody on the planet. And, you know, way more than these two bozos right here. So, you know, like just look back at the things that he said about batteries in 2012 and like their plan to create the Gigafactory. That announcement may have been 2014 when they're like, hey, we're going to make one factory that's going to produce as many batteries as all the rest of the batteries that are made in the world today. And like, he knew that was going to be possible. People laughed in his face. And then lo and behold, yeah, we make way more batteries today than was ever thought possible back in the early 2010s. And that was just one area. Then he like predicted, you know, he was telling Obama, you know, during his administration, hey, we really need to be starting to think about AI regulation because, you know, 5-10 years from now, this is going to be nuts. And lo and behold, here we are. And we've got ChatGPT and Perplexity and Claude and, you know, all these different insane LLM products. And we've got Sam Altman, who's gallivanting around the world telling everybody that AGI is right around the corner and all he needs is a cool $7 trillion or whatever it is. And like,
or his new McLaren.
Yeah. I mean, the point being that this is a repeated theme in Elon's life is that he knows how to identify those key independent variables that are the beginnings of a strategic exponential technology trend and think forward to the implications of what that's going to mean for the future of humanity. And so he's still all in on RoboTaxis, which tells me that, you know, the conservative future where it's just FSD and it's just a level 2 system and we're just going to, you know, only generate, you know, tens of billions of dollars worth of cash flow on these software services is not like, that's way too conservative. That the real value is full RoboTaxi, and that full RoboTaxi is worth orders of magnitude more than FSD, which is, you know, if it's possible, that's kind of an obvious conclusion. And all of the actions that Elon and Tesla are executing on are pointed at that specific direction. So it's exciting. It is a little bit nerve-wracking for those of us who don't have as much of a crystal ball as Elon, but, you know, we're along for the ride, and that's part of what makes it so fun to, you know, do our Monday morning quarterbacking and try and understand, you know, what the fuck is going on here.
I mean, I would also say Like the two examples that also come up when you're talking about like his foresight from a strategic perspective, 500,000 units per year by 2020. He called that in like 2015, 2016. And then the other one was LiDAR not needed for self-driving technology. You're seeing a bunch of companies left and right dropping that. Mobileye's taking a gigantic hit because of it. Maybe I forget what Mobileye? Maybe it's a different company. Anyway, just LiDAR's being dumped left and right. And all you have to do is track the Chinese self-driving technology market to see that there's a lot of companies that are growing vision only, because lo and behold, vision was the only thing you need, because you can, what LiDAR offers you from a benefit perspective can be replicated with vision. You just have to have an AI brain to be able to interpret that stuff in a best case scenario, right? Just like humans. Humans can drive through fog. Humans can drive through potholes. Humans can drive through rain. And we have 2 eyes and a brain. The car is going to have 8 eyes and a brain because it doesn't have neck, doesn't have a way to like articulate itself, right? So, and that was insane foresight, you know? For me, the question is not, is this going to get like level 4, level 5? And for those that are not familiar, level 4, level 5 self-driving capability basically means that the driver is not only not paying attention, but they are banned from putting in any inputs in the car, right? So it's fully self-driving. Like the human is removed from the equation. And level 4 has a steering wheel and pedal, and level 5 has no steering wheel and pedal, right? And I really think that's what Tesla's going to show on Thursday. Like they'll show that RoboTaxi without the steering wheel and pedal. And my prediction is also they'll also show one with a steering wheel and pedal, where they'll open up reservations for sale sometime in the first half of next year, potentially. What do you think?
I definitely disagree on that last point.
Oh.
I don't think that they're going to show a steering wheel and pedal model at all. Or if they do, that it would be the $25,000 car version, which they would say we're taking reservations for, but they're not going to be shipped until 2027 or something like that. Because I think that they're going to completely do a, sleight of hand and not mention the fact that there are new models of Teslas that are going to begin being manufactured in the first half of 2025 that are not necessarily built on the RoboTaxi platform. They are going to have steering wheels and pedals. They're going to be modified versions of, the 3 and Y is what it sounds like. And I don't think that they want to talk about those vehicles because I don't think they want to Osborne current sales. And so I think that they're going to want to direct investor focus towards the RoboTaxi platform, which they should, because that's the future of the company. And any back in investors' minds to the implications of that for producing cheaper cars needs to feel at this event like it's further out in the future, so that people aren't like, well, it's, October of 2024 and like 3 or 4 months from now, we're going to be getting some new cars. Should I really buy a Model 3 or Y today when maybe a little 3 hot hatch sounds even more exciting for me?
I think
that's my take on it.
If I can jump in real quick, because I think what's interesting there is like, I was 100% on the boat of like delay announcement as much as possible because the backlog for this thing is going to be insane, obviously. But then they came out in the first or second quarter report of this year, and I think it was the second quarter, and they said they're moving up plans to come out with cheaper models in this first half of 2025. So they already put it out there, right? So I'm like, why would you put that out there if that was the case? If they really wanted to,
so I guess there is one scenario that I didn't account for that is possible, and I would love to see this. If they are going to specifically talk about what those in-between vehicles are, the only reason I think that they would do that is because they're going to be configurable and orderable like in the next month or two, not in the back half of, like first half of 2025. So Q2 of 2025. So if they're almost ready to start cranking those things off the line, that would be an insane announcement. And I think that would drive auto analysts like up the walls, because the vast majority of all the auto analysts who are covering Tesla are basically saying that, Tesla's no longer a growth story whatsoever on the pure automotive business itself. And if they can break that narrative with the 1010 event, that would be, kind of a huge coup.
I just don't know why else they would put that out there. And that's like, unless they are saying, hey, we're just going to release cheaper versions of the Model 3 and the Model Y, because they said they're going to leverage their existing lines to do that, right? But by default, if they're going to leverage their existing lines to do that, the ramp to get that new vehicle out, whatever it may be, is significantly faster than manufacturing a brand new line, right? You no longer have to put on, even if it's not the Gen 3 line, or like the Cybertruck, for example, Cybertruck ramp, to actually get the lines going and ramp was a multi-year, a 24 to 18 month sort of endeavor to actually get it going. Whereas if you're leveraging existing lines and maybe just like expanding existing lines, you already have the proof of concept. You're just modifying the process or you're modifying the product that goes through that process to be able to go through there. And you have a lot of efficiencies you've baked into it that the new line will be able to process, right? I don't know how realistic that is. My gut tells me like, hey, if you're going to leverage existing lines, it could point to just a smaller, cheaper version of the Model 3 and the Model Y. But at the same time, the Model 3 and the Model Y also have, especially the Model, with the Highland's different because it came out with a refresh and they cleaned up a lot of stuff, right? This is like the first serious change that they've made. They could make like a $4,000 cheaper model of the Model 3 or the Y. And maybe that's what they do. Maybe like starting next year, they're like, hey, just the whole fleet is now cheaper. So you can just go buy those because we've been able to adjust. But I don't know. I mean, that's just me spitballing and seeing what happens. I think what could also happen is they unveil a compact car and it's so differentiated from the 3 and the Y that they're not really that afraid to open reservations now, because you would like the market for a 2-seater car is completely different than a Model 3. You just give up too much. And maybe you also say, when you have that small of a car, like, this is what I have in my head. This is like my vision for this car, this compact car that people can drive, right? This drivable compact car that's maybe not on the Gen 3 platform, but it leverages the existing lines plus some modifications, right? It's a 2-seater. Think of it like a smart car or a mini type form factor, hatchback, steering wheel pedal, super bare bones, but it has comfortable seating, great sound system, great screen, but it's Spartan. I mean, it's Spartan, more Spartan than any other thing would be, right? And it's small form factor. And the drivetrain is not what the Model 3 or the Model Y are. It's a real wheel drive, but it's also like 0 to 60 in 8 seconds, 7 seconds, 8.5 seconds, right? You're not even talking about this figure like, hey, this is just a perfect commuter A to B car, period. And you'll get there from A to B in total comfort. Oh, and by the way, if you want to, you can also download FSD or buy FSD, and this thing will also drive you from point A to point B. It will just have a steering wheel and pedal,
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, even if the 0 to 60 to time is 8 seconds, that's still like a minute faster than a Nissan Sentra or a Geo Metro.
Yeah. Or a Toyota Corolla, right? it will feel way faster because that's like the beauty behind an electric. Like, and I think that's another thing people like miss is like a 0 to 60 for 8 seconds of an electric vehicle feels like a 0 to 60 in 4 seconds in a gas car, because you get that immediate punch in the chest. And people that buy cars for $25,000 do not have access to that performance. It just does not exist. So you don't really have to have this insane drivetrain to drive that. And Tesla could save a few $100 to $1,000 on the drivetrain alone, maybe even more, because now the battery pack doesn't need to be nearly as powerful, and that's going to save weight, which is going to bring up the range. Or Tesla could say, you know what, let's limit it at 250 miles. And then, or whatever that is. So yank as many batteries as needed. I'm like simplifying the process. And then the other thing I was thinking of too is like, hey, this car, like, what are the physics behind having a car that's 30 to 40% lighter than the Model Y, let's say? It has half the performance, Like this car, if you plug it into a regular 110 or 120, I bet you that car can get 100 to 150 miles of charge overnight in a 110. That would be like a ridiculous value prop. You know, it's like $25,000 car can drive itself, super comfortable. You don't even need a high power outlet. Just literally plug it in anywhere and you'll get 150 miles of charge overnight. Like that is an insane product. And I feel like Tesla can totally do that. You know, how is that not the best selling car in the world? Well, I mean, that's an easy one because the Model Y already is.
Yeah.
But that's an insane value proposition. And I think that thing becomes like a brand new TAM for the company. It's like now people that traditionally would have hesitated to go into buying a car or new car or buying a used car or leasing a car or trying to save money, all of a sudden look at this value prop and like, holy shit, like I could pay $300, $400 a month all in, potentially with insurance included, because this thing's barely going to have any maintenance. And the charge is going to be like pennies on the dollar compared to gas prices. This thing never is going to break. It's super safe. It's extremely upgradable through software. And then all of a sudden you start stealing away market share from the used market. Like, and that's the largest car market in the United States. People buy way more used cars than they do buy new cars. And all of a sudden this thing becomes like the biggest product in the world. Forget car, right?
Yeah. And I think, on the point about how are they going to manufacture it and what's the relationship of their current manufacturing lines to whatever that looks like, it seems to me like we've been going through an unboxing process, like not the unbox process, but there's like a transitionary phase from how Model 3 was originally produced to how the Cybertruck is produced today. And they've been kind of unboxing all along that process. And I think that these lines that are going to produce these vehicles are going to be a step forward in unboxing. It's not going to be fully 100% executed, but that's, I think the way that they'll be able to upgrade these lines to have higher capacity is we're going to see a little bit more parallelism introduced to the line structures and, more sub-assemblies for longer, that type of thing, as they work to actually build these vehicles on top of, like you said, changing the form factor slightly, making it smaller, and doing some of those extra things as well. And I'm excited to get more color on the, what does the manufacturing process look like for once we do get that full Gen 3 RoboTaxi platform vehicle. Learn more about that because, it was an exciting little segment of the presentation that they talked about at the Investor Day last year, but it really wasn't that long and we didn't really get that much detail. And so there's some room for them to really expand on that so that we can get an understanding. And it has big implications because, we could have a lot of shared components potentially between like a van and the Cybertruck or various small form vehicles could have a lot of common parts and sub-assemblies. And all of that is going to be, something that at least the super nerdy, like engineering types among us are going to love to dig into and explore and think through the implications of.
You think they'll sell the van?
I think there's probably a 40% chance. Like, I don't think it's 50-50, but it's close. That I definitely think, obviously the two-seater is 100% guaranteed practically. And then I think for RoboTaxi rides that require a larger vehicle, but not all the way up to a van, you just, assign those to your current lineup of Y mostly. If you really want to go crazy, you can do S and X. And then you've got your Cybertruck for doing truck things. But that, van use case is a huge use case. And I think the only argument for Tesla not to make one is so that they can leave one last niche that it is available if one of these other car companies wants, a beachhead to start in and grow from. Like demand for a Tesla quality van, both for, in multiple sizes. Like commercial van sales are huge all across the world, and they are built on anything from little bitty, like there are vans built on a Ford Focus chassis essentially, all the way up to, you know, Ford F-350 chassis and everything in between, and then, you know, really things even larger than that. So there's a ton of opportunity for Tesla to enter into that space. And if they were going to, you know, a modular platform like we're talking about seems like the perfect opportunity for them to do that. So I think it's, you know, high likelihood.
Yeah. So high likelihood. So 40% is high likelihood?
Yeah.
Okay. Significant likelihood. So I'm going to go with 99.9% they show it. I think it's a total guarantee. And the reason why is because of the point of why would you keep that in your back pocket? That's a brand new TAM. It cannibalizes nothing. And it introduces a brand new use case for a van form factor that has been used in the past, which is like a bus type thing. But in the world of self-driving, that thing it transforms the use case of group transportation from point A to point B. So think like a limo type vibe that this is like one of the use cases, right? A bar or club and a place of entertainment can purchase these high volume things and offer it as a service for people to come to their venues, and they can stuff that sucker with, let's say, fun substances like alcohol, which will be 1000% doable because you yank the driver out of the system. I mean, they have party buses now, right? But that's one of the use cases. Like, how many other use cases can you have with this literal room on wheels? And, you know, Elon Musk has talked about, you know, once you have a room on wheels, what happens, right? Talk about that being a perfect use case for the Wii robot thing. You now are transforming what it means to move from point A to point B in a group. So your RoboTaxi is like the use case for the 90% of rides that happen on the road, which is 1 to 2 person. And then your other use case is like, hey, but for fun stuff, here's the van. Oh, and by the way, Home Depot can purchase a fleet of these and add them to their store. And they can now start doing at-home deliveries for a fraction of the cost that would have cost them before, because now they can stick all the 2x4s in a self-driving van and just shoo it away to your place. You know what I'm saying? Like, the amount of different use cases for this van is insane. And if you're going to have an event called We Robot, I don't see how you don't show that product. Now, that could be my insanely optimistic view, which I've been known to have with certain things in the past. But I think the van I will be shocked if they don't show the van, especially when they had it on the wraps in multiple events. And they introduced it on the wraps. When was this? During last year's shareholder meet. Or was it this year's shareholder meet? I think it was this year's shareholder meet.
I think it was last year.
Or last year.
I think it was both. Yeah, I mean, they had it this year too.
Yeah, they're obvious. And Elon Musk has poked at it. And this one, if they're going to be inviting so many people to see it live, I feel like that's the kind of thing you show that's a little cherry on top. You know, it's like, hey, stick it up. It's happening.
Yeah. So. I mean, the argument against it is, like you said, that it's more of a cherry on top. And so the reason they wouldn't do it is if they just want to keep focus on the thing that is the 90% of rides, that's the vast majority of the revenue. And maybe they want to keep it, you know, a little bit closer to the vest. You know, I think it's guaranteed that it's a product eventually, and really not that distant in the future. But that's where I get a little bit more unsure of whether or not they'll display it here on the 1010 event, or if they'll decide to hold it back just to keep. I think we're already going to hear, like, I think it's going to be jam-packed full of information. And so that's where, but to contradict myself, and where you might be right, is I think that part of the purpose of the event is really to show off the ecosystem of RoboTaxi. And it is an important part of the ecosystem of RoboTaxi, even if it's not necessarily the center point. And, you know, Franz deserves to show the world what the heck he's been working on for the last, 5 years or however long that he's been having to be super secretive. And yeah, like, and he's super excited. I think he deserves to get to show us some new products for a change, since we haven't seen anything new from him since the Cybertruck.
Yeah. I think the we and the we robot is like the we, like the people that are going to be part of that ecosystem. Like if you purchase a Tesla product moving forward, what you're doing is you're purchasing a product that can be added to the robotics ecosystem that Tesla is working on or is creating. It's very similar to like how the App Store sort of functions as an ecosystem for iPhones, for Apple products. App Store is really that ecosystem where you can just download apps and put on your smartphone device. I wonder, it makes a lot of sense to me. Like, okay, so now Tesla is a robotics ecosystem company where you purchase a robotic, you can mix and match how you want to use these. It's like, hey, I want to add an Optimus robot to this van so that it can run deliveries, or I want to add this RoboTaxi to the network where, to run people around or something. And this opens up. Here's the bit that's like the most exciting is like, and you've brought this up 1,000 times, right? The meat space GPT. Like we're thinking of form factors that we're familiar with. What are other form factors that appear out of this thing that are AI powered robots, which we talked about on this channel previously, that completely and fundamentally change what it means to interface with the real world, right? And that's where like the iPhone was that sort of like aha moment, or the iPad was the aha moment, or like the laptop was the aha moment, right? So like there's form factors that never exist before, then they show up and they're like, oh wow, okay, that makes a lot of sense. What form factors are we completely oblivious to, where the AI powering a physical object becomes such a no-brainer product that it explodes? And if that company is doing that and they have the vertical integration with their entire ecosystem, how does that plug into that ecosystem, that we robot ecosystem, right? It's insane. It's especially when Tesla's so good at manufacturing. It's like, it's so exciting. Yeah.
Well, the two obvious products within Elon's ecosystem that fall into that category are the Optimus humanoid robot and the Neuralink interface. And that is, the beginnings of an insane sci-fi future. Like the humanoid robot form factor is the general interface to interact with the world created by humans. And it obviously, once it is fully capable, can then magically start doing all kinds of cool, interesting, useful, and sometimes scary things. Then I did want to go down a little rabbit hole just for a second on the title We Robot. That I think my interpretation of the we in We Robot is, since we're inverting, since it's a reference to the movie and the book iRobot, the I in that iRobot, I feel like was a reference to robots' independence from us. And I think the goal of this event is, instead of painting this AI-powered robot future as this scary future, because these robots are independent from us and they're divorced from our values and interests and goals, We Robot is about painting a future where AI-powered robotics is a contributor to the type of abundant future that we all want, where those AI robots serve the desires and interests of humanity, and we have like a bright, exciting future that is not this dystopian sci-fi hellscape, but is instead something that's exciting that we can look forward to and benefit from.
I think that's a great observation, and I agree with that. I think the marriage of man and machine, where man wins, where machine actually helps and doesn't replace, right? I think that's going to be a hell of a, I think if companies able to sort of paint that future, to me, that feels as grand as the original mission of the company, which was accelerating the world to sustainable energy, right? Now it's sort of been transformed into accelerating the advent of artificial intelligence in a way that is complementary to human thriving and not a sort of, it doesn't diminish the thriving of humans. And it's like, if you think about how Elon likes to set grand visions and align an entire workforce towards that vision and inspire the public to want to adopt its products based on that mission, that to me feels as grand as that original vision, you know? And in an interesting way, it also helps achieve that original mission because the adoption of these robots, because they are powered by electricity, which can be, and batteries, which can be fully recyclable, and electricity can be generated in 1,000 different ways, basically. And you are honoring your original mission statement while adding a secondary mission statement that says we're here to make the world a better place and to make humans more capable than ever and freeing people's time. Like going back to that original sort of thing of, hey, like what is the fundamental currency that humans value the most? It's time. And if you can do that with robotics and AI, then you've essentially multiplied the capability of every human on the planet by 100x, 1,000x. Really, the sky's the limit. You know, the imagination is the limit. It's exciting.
Yeah. One way to think about it is that with OpenAI or any of these frontier AI products, they're still wrestling with the alignment problem. You know, how do we make sure that these AI or artificial superintelligence systems that they think that hopefully they're building one day, how do we make sure that those things are aligned with human values? And I think that's the way that I'm thinking about We Robot is Elon Musk's proposal to solve the alignment problem for this first generation of real world AI products. And that's an important thing. And I think that if we can make tangible progress on the real world alignment AI problem, then it will help us not only to have confidence and hope for our ability to solve the purely digital, AGI alignment problem, but also probably provides us with really important learnings and context on how to do that. And I think that all of that is super important. And this is one of the benefits that Elon has of having this, massive exposure to different shots on goal, different projects, everything from SpaceX to Neuralink to XAI to Tesla to, all of his historical experience back with PayPal and Zip2 and all those things. I think it gives him one of the best vantage points from which to make the correct decisions, have the best chance of landing humanity in a future where AI is aligned with humanity's best interests.